Empathy versus sympathy.
Empathy versus sympathy.
And the building blocks of authentic connection.
It's a really subtle difference.
Ask them, what is it like?
Not trying to fix it, not trying to make it right.
Tell me that.
And then we can show up differently.
Where are they coming from?
Authentic and real connection with each other. Hello, hello. Good evening. Welcome to Truth Be Told. We are Soul Evolution Collaborative and super excited to be here for another episode 41, crazy, of Truth Be Told. And this month we are talking about the building blocks of authenticity and connection and why these things are important. Why is it important for us to look at showing up authentically and look for deep connections with other people? We are actually wired for connection. We are wired to look for and to pursue connections with other people. So we thought we would dedicate this month to looking deeper into how to cultivate these relationships. And so this week is sympathy versus empathy, what the difference is, how these two things play out, what the challenge is, where the opportunity is in this, and some tools to help us build more authentic relationships through, well, I don't want to give it away. You'll find out this watching the rest of the episode, but sympathy and empathy.
So this week we're talking about empathy versus sympathy. And you may be wondering, what is the difference? And it's a really subtle difference. Empathy is our ability to connect with the perspective or the emotions or the experience of someone else. Now, sympathy is a little bit removed from that in the fact that we bring our own judgments about a situation. So we may look at something, look at a challenge, look at something that's going on in someone's life and say, wow, that really is horrible and I'm really sorry you're going through that. But empathy goes a little bit further in that it invites us to really look at a situation from someone else's perspective. And so when we do that, we not only connect with the emotions of that person, but we connect to our own emotions, our own experiences, our own situations in our past where we may have felt the same way. And in that connection with our experiences, we can connect with others, and then we can show up differently. Not just in a sympathetic, I'm sorry, but in a really sitting with. So the challenge in this, the challenge in empathy is, it really starts with us. Our own ability to connect with our own emotions. And wow, that can be challenging because there's so many things that happen that bring up so many different types of emotions. Ones that we label positive, some that we may label not so positive. And so some of those challenging emotions we kind of want to stuff down and not really look at. But it's only when we can really connect to our own emotions, to our own things that come up around certain life experiences, that we can even begin to sit with other people, journey with other people, be empathetic with other people's experiences. So the challenge is really sitting with our own stuff. And so when we get really comfortable with sitting with our own stuff, because we all have stuff, I have things, you have things, we all have things. So when we get really comfortable with sitting with our own stuff, we can sit with others. We can sit with others without trying to fix something, without trying to turn all the lights on. We can sit in the experiences of others with them. And this doesn't mean that we get lost in the experiences, but it's just a gentle awareness of our own emotions, our own things that come up around our own life, and how that shows up in the lives of others. So the challenge is getting connected with our own stuff. to be able to sit with it, to be able to get really curious about it. And from that space of curiosity, we can step boldly into empathy because we understand that life shows up in so many different ways for so many different people. And when we understand our own experience of that, it's only then that we can sit and meet others in their own experience.
Yeah. It's interesting. I realize approaching this week that this was one of those weeks where I wasn't quite sure where I stood on the topic. Like I had to really kind of take some time to look into, what do I think and feel about this? And what have I learned? And is that true? And I think based on some conversations that we've had that we all kind of had some of that experience. And so it's really interesting to see. It sounds like we kind of all landed on the same page with it, which is impressive on one hand.
For real. Oh, thank God.
But I was amazed watching that. Like, oh yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. That's what I came up with also. Wow. So to kind of start at zero this week and figure out, like, to really cultivate, this is maybe not something I had given as much attention to as most other topics, most other weeks. And like, how does this actually play out? And yeah, sympathy is way more about me than it is anything to do with the other person.
It's interesting what showed up for me too, because, I came into this week thinking, I got this. I mean, my whole other professional career has been in this area of sitting with people. And so I came in with it. But when I started really looking at this idea that we do have to be really aware of how things show up for us, like emotions around certain things, like, how sadness feels in our bodies, how anger feels in our body, how stress feels in our own body. Like, get really clear about that to even be able to then be empathetic to someone else, because empathy is this understanding of seeing it from someone else's perspective, but also being able to have a sort of a feeling of the other person's feelings. So it kind of makes us really have to be really clear about our own stuff. And how it's that connection with my experience of sadness and your experience of sadness. And it's through my own experience and then sitting with you in your experience that we are connected. Yeah. But I have to have my own experience first, or I can never be empathetic. It doesn't have to be the exact same experience, of course, but we all have these things that bring up these similar emotions that we have. So it hit home to me, because I think I've always kind of operated of keep my stuff here in a corner, then I'm just going to fix your stuff, and so that's not empathy at all. Empathy, it requires that connection, but it has to start with me.
I think it's a powerful thing. Like, it takes a strong person to be able to empathize. Like, I don't really, like, your EQ, people's emotional intelligence plays into it so much. And I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there in the world that aren't necessarily able to step up into empathy. That I think everybody's got the ability, and it'll take a little bit of working out a muscle. Because it takes a lot of strength and willingness to be willing to feel into those hard things that we've experienced before and share it with somebody else. So my hat definitely goes off to those that are able and willing to try to step up into empathy.
Well, and then, sympathy is, like you said, Dan, it's it doesn't really require much of me. It doesn't require much of me to feel sorry for you. Wow, that really sucks. That takes nothing from me. I haven't had to do anything, give anything. And so,
but it also offers nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
You're right.
So like it's a total connection breaker. I mean, like
Yeah.
there's not a leg for connection to stand on in that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes these words that we use, these sympathetic words, sometimes are to bypass our own uncomfortableness of a situation.
Right.
I mean, I've done it. It's not. I'm not saying I've never done it before, but I think that when we're not comfortable with emotion, with our own emotion, we tend to want to bypass other people's emotion, and we do that a lot.
And I don't even know that it's sometimes. I think it might actually be all the time. Like all the time that we move to sympathy rather than empathy. I mean, this is my opinion about it. I don't know if this is totally universal or not, but I think it is 100% to bypass some version of us having to feel the uncomfortable emotions that watching that event brings up in us. You know, watching someone else cry. It's like, oh man, have a tissue.
Yeah.
The tissue's not for you, it's for me.
Right.
Please stop.
Right.
Plug that up, please.
Yeah.
It makes me uncomfortable. I don't know how to relate to you when you're there in your hard stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
and it goes back to like previous weeks of this whole idea of like this vulnerability and strength sort of thing too, you know, and so that when we have historically viewed showing emotions or expressing emotions as something that is weakness, then of course we're going to be so disconnected from our own emotions and definitely disconnected from the emotions and experiences of others.
Yeah.
And so like this is how this all ties in. You think we would actually have created this, that it all makes sense, but it's all these like little things that have to be in place in order for this idea of true connection to take root.
Cool. Well, that sounds like a perfect place to jump into our next segment here, which touches on a lot of this a little bit further.
Yay.
Sympathy versus empathy, and the building blocks of authentic connection. So what is the opportunity this week? What is the opportunity in understanding sympathy versus empathy at a deeper level? Sympathy. It sounds like this great value. It is something that so many of us, I think, have been brought up with, that we should be sympathetic towards others. But really, what does this do? This allows for a very shallow understanding and connection, if there's any connection at all, with the person that we are being sympathetic towards, or the group that we are being sympathetic towards. Because what sympathy does is it actually gives us a perception of that situation from back here. It allows us to stay removed from whatever is going on, and more often than not, to be sympathetic towards a person or a group is really more about me, the person, feeling sympathetic and soothing my own discomfort in viewing that situation. So when I see somebody in a situation that brings up those feelings in me, viewing them in that situation that I would not like being in, makes me feel those things which I obviously would not like to feel, and then engage in some sort of activity that soothes my discomfort. That is sympathy. Sympathy is handing someone a tissue when they're crying, patting them on the back when they're feeling down, saying something off the cuff that's usually pretty shallow. You'll get through this, you'll be okay. Whatever kind of go-to expression that comes out, that is sympathy. And it does not actually build any sort of relationship. It's not bring us closer to that person. In fact, it actually removes us from the situation. It makes us feel better, makes it feel like we did something, like we engaged and somehow helped this situation. So sympathy has actually lessened our relationships with each other. Empathy, on the other hand, is the gateway towards actually building authentic and real connection with each other. Empathy puts us in the trenches with that other person or that other group. It brings us closer together. Understanding, being with that person, being with that group in the moment, Not trying to fix it, not trying to make it right, just being there, understanding, providing support if necessary. Empathy asks of us a willingness to step further into our emotional intelligence, a willingness to step further into understanding our own experiences and being willing to be in that discomfort. Again, vulnerability. It takes the vulnerability to be in the moment with that person or group, in that experience that otherwise makes us so uncomfortable, being in that moment where we want to hand over the tissue or pat on the back or give a hug, but be there, to truly be there with that person, with that experience. To not make it about me at all, to not make it about me or my feelings or my experience, but to just be with that person. And so the opportunity this week is to embrace that in us. We each have that. We each have the ability to step into empathy with everything that is going on in the world now. I think we need empathy more than ever before, that there is a moment, probably on a daily basis, to engage empathetically with people in our lives, to build deeper connections, to build deeper relationships. And that is the opportunity this week, to look for those moments, to build those deeper connections with people, not to sympathize away ourselves from these experiences, but to embrace, to step into that discomfort, to look discomfort in the face, our own discomfort, not the discomfort of others, but to look at the discomfort that comes up for us when we see discomfort in others and to be with them, to embrace our own emotional intelligence, to embrace our own spiritual journey, to deepen the connection with ourselves through deepening connection with others. And then the cycle begins. We deepen our own connection with ourselves and something greater than us, allowing us to deepen our connection with somebody else, which mirrors back to us the opportunity to deepen our connection with ourselves. Because being in that moment, being in that discomfort, will certainly bring up discomfort for us, which is for us to deal with, not to push away, but to look through and to just sit in and to really be in this moment with someone else. Empathy. So let's try it this week.
I'm sensing a common theme of discomfort.
It's almost like we planned this.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, like this idea of discomfort and like being able to sit in discomfort, because it's like it's not, I don't know, it's like a lot of these things are things that don't come natural because these default ways that we have been conditioned to. So I think that's what creates this discomfort. So that's why we're always talking about sitting in discomfort, because we have been conditioned, whether, from family of origin or just from our experiences or life experiences that have been layered upon us, that we have been conditioned to respond in these ways. So that's why, like, discomfort, it's almost like sitting in discomfort is now like a spiritual superpower. Because,
Yeah.
because our ability to do that really untangles everything, all the other things that are underneath it. So I just noticed that when you were talking about discomfort, that doesn't necessarily seem like it's not like a good commercial for the spiritual life, but
Come be uncomfortable with us.
Outside, come be uncomfortable with us. But man, what are the benefits of stepping through that, of breaking through that? Are amazing, because it's not discomfort for discomfort's sake. It's not like this martyr sort of thing, but it's like that any growth is a stretching. It's a movement from one space to the next. And the same way with this idea of empathy, to be able to step towards people instead of stepping back, kind of like you talked about how sympathy really disconnects us from an uncomfortable situation. Yeah. But empathy really has us stepping forward, not in a way that we get so tied up in people's stuff, but in a way that we can connect with people and also keep our own grounded balance of our own self too, because that's important. Otherwise, that's just enmeshment, and that's not empathy at all. And then you got two people in the hole instead of just one. Yeah. Hmm.
I really like that idea that oh my god, as we lean into that, well, there was a couple things that came up there for me. One, when Dan was talking about how we really need this more now in our world than ever. I think, we're talking a lot about how empathy works, like with personal relationships. But as we talk about it, like, being necessary on the world scale more now, I see that, playing out in a big way, that as we learn to empathize with the people that we may disagree with, like we've gotten so polarized that we're unable to have conversations with somebody that feels differently than we do, or has different beliefs or opinions or takes on reality. If we can maybe start to come and understand where they're coming from, I think there's a lot of superpower there. And then the other thing that was kind of really interesting is, like, as you were talking about spiritually, is we are able to sit in this discomfort, how that is a superpower, that we're sharing that with others. I heard just recently, like, that's part of life, right? When we talk about like the richness of life, like, yeah, we get to experience joy, happiness, celebration kind of stuff, but we don't really know what that is unless we experience like its opposite. So for that full richness, I heard somebody just recently talking about, well, if your whole goal in life is just to be comfortable, I can prescribe you a drug for that. But who wants to really just live that 100% comfort, numb, kind of thing? So I think that it really is our superpower, and I think it is the key for us moving forward as we evolve on this planet.
But yeah, it's interesting. That brings up something I was thinking about the other day. In preparation for this, the idea came to mind. Wow, I realized we haven't talked a whole lot about why we would want to build authentic and deep connections with other people. I realized like that wasn't even topic of conversation. It was just kind of assumed that everyone would want to do that. And I thought, wow, maybe we should talk about that. And I kind of had this realization that, yeah, okay, it's something we could talk about, but actually we don't need to. That we are born with this inherent desire for deep connection, whether that is at the level of needing a unit of people to belong to for safety, or whether it's a family or just a group of people or whatever. I mean, like from the very like survival level of survival mechanisms in us, we are wired for connection with people. And beyond that, we're wired for like deep connection. I mean, there really is a desire in us biologically as well as psychologically to have deep connections. And what I kind of thinking through this, what I came up with, I think this will hold true, is we've had it so ingrained in us. And I say we, I think by and large, society in the United States, we have all at this point grown up with this idea that we need to show up in a certain way. And so if it's to not embarrass the family, don't hang your dirty laundry kind of thing, or if it's just to not show up as weak, not show up, don't let people in, don't let the outside see how you are, like, all this, what I would consider at this point old beliefs for us here, that more or less everybody has grown up with some version of that. And what I realized was all of the tools and things that we're talking about here, pretty much always, but especially this month, are things that go directly against that mentality. The mentality of don't let people see you have flaws. Don't let people see that family at home isn't perfect. Don't let people see, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, oh man, we are actually taught from day one skills that inhibit us from creating actual deep connection with others, because what's necessary to create those deep connections is directly opposing this idea that our life is perfect and God forbid anything is. It's like, oh my God. Like that is such a deep seated belief. I mean, I know for me, I mean, it's not like that was ever even talked about, and I didn't even grow up with this idea that we had to show up perfect or whatever. But it's still, that idea is still there. Like,
Yeah.
don't show up and don't show whatever. And it's like, oh man, no, that's literally the opposite of what we're getting into. And so it's kind of weeding out all kinds of different thoughts and ideas and old stuff. And yeah, so A, we're wired for connection. B, we all know it, but have this protection mechanism going on that says we shouldn't want that, but also know deep down that what we're looking for requires us to stop doing the thing we've always done.
And it creates such a fragmented experience of life. And it's hard to like keep I definitely grew up in this idea of like perfect on the outside, that sort of thing. And that's exhausting.
Yeah.
So it's exhausting. And then sometimes you forget, oh wait, am I inside or outside? So then it's like, don't let your whatever show, and so it does create this fragmented experience of life. So it's like this outside life, inside life. And I think that blocks the true enjoyment of life, the true enjoyment of connection, the true balance that our bodies and mind and our souls feel when we have that connection that we are absolutely not even just wired, but hardwired for. I mean, it is in our DNA for connection. And it looks different for everyone, but just connection with others. And so exactly. It's hard to have that when you're kind of like living this fragmented experience. And so it's a kind of a cool opportunity for us to say, screw all that. This is what we're going to do. And even if it's just the three of us, hell, I mean, it's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the whole call of the spiritual life, I think, or just life in general, to live it to the fullest in this deeply connected way is like to squeeze every little drop of every little second, which is at the end, that's what we want to do, have lived our lives and have squeezed every bit of joy we could out of it. And I think that only comes through this connection that we're talking about.
Yeah. I think the good news is we're not, it's not just the three of us.
Yay.
And actually, I think that as much as the world seems to have negative things to say about the up and coming generations, I think when you get to know them well, they have such a desire for authenticity and deep connections and showing up the way that we're talking about, and have been raised less and less in this idea of, I mean, you could try and teach them to don't show the inside on the outside. And I don't even think that they would go for it. I don't even think they could, that there is a new way.
It's almost like an emotional evolution. It really is like an emotional evolution. It's exciting to be a part of, and it's exciting to witness, and it's exciting to offer a space like this for people to really toy around with that idea.
Yeah.
That was well said, for sure. It made me see it in a different angle there, Reverend Dan. I appreciate that. And it also made me think that I could see why there could be resistance to this, because it is ingrained. We are going against the old ways of being, and people know that they were raised in that, and they're not going to let go. Like, no, that's not right. You don't show yourself. You don't.
Right.
That's how the response of the old guard is going to be, more than likely. Granted, I'm sure that there are a few that hear this and know it and have been, longing for that hardwired sense that's in us. That was You twisted my mind a little bit there. It's pretty cool.
Uh-oh, I see smoke coming.
That being said, let us help you twist your mind. Come see us more often. So, Soul Evolution Collaborative, we've got a lot of fun things that we like to do throughout the week. We do, of course, you're seeing this. The live is great. We'd love to see you come in and comment and interact with us a little bit while we are putting this on. Wednesday nights, we do Unwind Wednesday guided meditation that follows along with the subject of the week and putting a little bit more emphasis on trying to come together with the collective and raise that collective consciousness of the planet. If that seems like something you might like, come check that out. You can sign up on the website for Unwind Wednesday. You'll get the link for that. Thursday nights have been our most powerful night of the week. It's a lot of fun. We have some great people that come together, and it's a place where you can be seen and see others. And it's no fixing. It's just a conversation. We share our experiences or beliefs around the subject of the week. And I mean, it has been really a powerful experience for myself. I know for Reverend Dan, Reverend Ryan, the same is true. And for the people that come there, I mean, it is deep conversation. People are opening up. And I think we're all learning new things about ourselves, about each other, and really about how we show up in this world. So we want to encourage you, get more involved. Come check us out. We appreciate all your support and watching, and just the fact that if you're watching and you're still here at this point, that means that you are part of this new way of being that we are creating on this planet right now. So for that, thank you. Keep up this work. Come see us more. Keep your eyes open, because teaser alert, we are ready to step into our phase 3. So big news coming in the not too distant future. Other than that, thanks for being here. Sit back and enjoy this last segment from Truth Be Told. Empathy versus sympathy. So this month, as you know, we've been talking about the building blocks of authenticity and connection. So one, communication is always going to be there. That's probably the number one tool for deeper connection. Now, this week, we want to look at empathy and how that relates to sympathy, or sometimes gets confused as sympathy, and look at what helps really deepen our relationships and our connections with other people. The first, what I would say, tool for this week is, it's twofold, and actually it's the only tool. It's curiosity and imagination. In order to deepen your sense of empathy with somebody else, you have to really be curious and ask yourself, and this is where imagination comes in, as you ask yourself, like, what it must be like for whatever somebody is feeling, where they're coming from, what their beliefs are. When you ask that question, you get really curious. One, communication, asking the people. Ask them, what is it like? Tell me about it. And two, opening up your imagination. Empathy is really about feeling into and being into that same thing that the person or people are going through. So on a global scale, I want to look at this from two different aspects. One, if there's somebody that we have differences with, or people, ideologies, or whatever, that are different than us. If we want to learn how to communicate and cross those bridges to learn how to get along rather than to be always opposed, we have to be curious and use our imagination. Where are they coming from? What events in their lives have gotten them to where they're at? What is their experience like? And then using our imagination to really feel as if we were in that place. It's a powerful tool, and you can really start to feel empathy. You can start to feel that connection. I don't know how to describe it other than when you give it a shot and try it, you should hopefully at some point feel a little bit of that switch to where you were kind of in their mind, in their experience. It's a skill that we can definitely deepen and develop, but you have to become curious to really want to feel what that other person or other people are coming from. Now I want to take another step further with creating deeper connection with the people that we're really close with, people that we want to deepen that relationship with. Here's the thing, when somebody comes to you and they're going through their struggles, they're in whatever event in their life, that your tendency might be to do that sympathy thing, where they come to you with their problem and you want to try to fix it. You want to tell them what to do to make it better. or you want to offer them the silver lining, telling them things like, well, at least this didn't happen, or the thing like, oh, what you're going through, I went through XYZ, and something that's not even really related, but it's something that we just want to kind of make ourselves feel better, rather than just being with them, being in their space and holding that space with them. We don't want to bring that silver lining necessarily. We want to come and just really be there for them. And this is the gift of having a really good life partner or good group of friends, people that we can count on. When we're in our struggles and in our pain, when somebody else comes along and instead of offering sympathy, they are able to really empathize, it's like they're carrying that weight with us. We sense their authenticity as they are really feeling with us and just being present and saying, yeah, I'm going to get down here in this hole with you and we're just going to sit and wait it out. We're going to be together and I'm here with you. When we do that, we have this heavy burden, but all of a sudden now when you have somebody else there with you, it's like we cut that burden in half. We're each going to carry a little bit of the load together. To have somebody in your life that's willing to go there with you, it's priceless. And the flip side of that is that when we are happy and we're in celebration and feeling joy, when that same person is there and they get happy, it's not like they're carrying half of it. All of a sudden now they're in that same place. It's like we've doubled the joy. So that's what a really good connection with somebody else in this world can do for us. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this whole month. The building blocks of authenticity and connection. You have to open up to that authenticity, find that support, and be that support. That's the essential part too, is that we get what we give, and you have to be willing to carry that for others and have faith that they're going to be there to carry it for you as well.
Yeah. I love the idea. Something that you just made clear for me is like there's almost different levels of sympathy that we engage in. And it's one thing to like move from sympathy for someone that we care about, move from sympathy into empathy. And it's just a matter of like, I want to be in this space with this person. It's just a matter of moving past my own discomfort. All right, I'm willing to do that. But then, to move along this spectrum into this idea, this realm of feeling sympathetic for someone I don't agree with almost becomes a stand of righteousness more than it does. I mean, there is certainly a discomfort in, wow, what you believe makes me uncomfortable, and I'm going to prove that I'm right. And I feel sorry for but then to take that even further and like to have empathy for someone that I would otherwise think I do not like or care for. This idea of moving from sympathy into empathy in that situation is like, not only does that require me the willingness to move through my own discomfort that would normally show up stepping into empathy, but like moving through the discomfort of what this person believes in feels like they're standing in direct opposition to what I believe in, and to show up in empathy anyway. That's like a whole other realm of emotional intelligence, willingness, vulnerability, sense of groundedness. I mean, that's like, Dalai Lama.
Next level.
Yeah.
It is next level stuff for sure.
Yeah. I hadn't quite thought through all the way that experience.
Well, and it's like, we see people show up in ways that we would wish they wouldn't show up. And I like something you said, Chris, is something that has always helped me in those times where I can look at someone and we have totally different ways of viewing the world, totally different ways of sometimes just viewing life in general. And that everyone has a story. There's always something behind the external action or reaction. And oftentimes it's fear, often at times it's lack, oftentimes it's unworthiness. And I can relate to that. I can relate to what it means to be fearful. I can relate to what it means to be in lack or have that mentality. I can relate to acting from a space of unworthiness because I've done that. And it may look different on the outside, but I can relate to the cause. And I think that is when we can get really curious about people's stories, because I don't think people wake up and think, wow, how can I be really horrible today? No, people just don't do that. Like no one does that, or not many people do that. But what happens is we go throughout the day and our fears and our triggers and our unworthiness and all that stuff that all of us have, it gets brought to the surface and it just looks different for everyone. And so if we can view it in those eyes, if we can see people with that lens, then I think that we can get to empathy really a lot quicker. That doesn't mean that we're going to agree with how they show up from those triggered spaces, but at least we can understand, wow, yeah, when I'm afraid, I do some things that I would really rather not have done, and so we can relate. So that curiosity, once again, is a superpower. I tell you, it's the integral piece of a lot of this.
Yeah. The other thing that it sparked, the other thought it sparked listening to you, Chris, was I think because I'll speak for me, because I have become so accustomed to sympathy being the norm and not empathy, that when someone does show up in that space of empathy and it's unexpected, it's almost like, go away. Like when you said that, like, I'm gonna get down in this hole with you and I'm just gonna be here and we're just gonna chill. And like I could almost feel that emotion come up. It's like, can you leave me alone? Because it's like, as much as I think we do when we are the receiver of sympathy, I think we do recognize how icky it feels and it's not authentic. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, great, whatever. Like you don't really care. But then when somebody shows up, like we're also not conditioned to receive.
Yeah.
Just as much as we are not conditioned to offer these things.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're conditioned to receive these things either. And so it was interesting to kind of witness that reaction in myself of like, oh, leave me alone. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I will have to look at that.
Yeah. And that interesting flip side, because I'm with you. I'm like, let me stay in this hole, please. And please leave me alone.
Right.
Yeah, because receiving it is also very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Right.
There's just discomfort everywhere we have to push through. It sounds
like. Jesus.
And I think it's good observation too of, when you were talking about kind of generational shifts that have been occurring, because the idea of sympathy of, like 20 years ago, to see somebody in their pain and just acknowledge with them, like, yeah, that sucks. I feel for you. That was kind of where we're going now. That was 20 years ago, a stretch forward to just acknowledge rather than just saying, yeah, that's life, suck it up, pull your bootstraps up and move on. That was, the norm 20 years ago. So for 20 years ago, for somebody to say, dude, yeah, man, I feel for you. Like that was breaking 20 years ago, but we've moved on since then.
Yeah.
And but it really is. I mean, it's generational and I love seeing it. Talking to you millennials, Reverend Dan, showing the way. And then the Gen Zers, it's happening.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So where are we at here? Lost track of where we are in the show already.
We're at the end.
Believe
it or not, we are at the end.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for spending this time with us. We clearly have a lot of fun putting this together, and we're never short on words of how we feel about these topics. It's just so amazing to have this space to delve into some of these really exciting things, these really important conversations about life and about how we interact with each other and how we can grow. So if you would like to take it a step further, like Chris said before, our Thursday night, The Gathering, is the perfect place to do that. It's a place to come, to see and be seen, to really take a little bit of a deeper, closer look at this topic of empathy versus sympathy, and really learn from the experiences of others. It's been absolutely a transformational time. So hop on over to soulevolutioncollaborative.org. You can click on The Gathering. You can sign up for that, and you'll receive a link for that on Thursday. Now, Soul Evolution Collaborative is made possible by people like you, by your support, whether it's dropping in on a Thursday night or dropping in on a meditation or by watching the show. All the support is what makes this community possible. If you would like to help financially support, which is also what makes this community possible, you can also go to soulevolutioncollaborative.org and click the donate button. All donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. It is people like you that continue the mission and the vision of this community, which is doing some pretty big things now, is going to do some super big things in the future. So to stay up to date, also, once again, visit soulevolutioncollaborative.org. You can get emails and blogs and all sorts of fun things that are happening coming up. And so that's how you're going to stay up to date with all the fun and cool things that we are doing now and are going to do in the future. So we'll see some of you Thursday night. And for everyone else, we'll see you next week. Have a